For over 50 years, one aircraft ruled the skies. An aircraft so iconic that even people who know nothing about aviation can recognize it instantly. That humpback silhouette, the four engines, the sheer size of it. This was a Boeing 747. And for decades, it wasn't just an airliner, it was the airliner. The aircraft that connected continents, transformed global travel forever, and became one of the greatest engineering achievements in aviation history. But despite its legendary status, even giants fall. Today, on Explaining the Skies, we're taking a look at the rise and fall of the Queen of the Skies. Now, to fully understand the Boeing 747, we need to go back all the way to the 1960s. At the time, air travel was growing rapidly. More people than ever wanted to fly internationally. But there was a problem. Their aircraft, they were too small. So airlines needed something capable of carrying huge numbers of passengers over long distances, and Boeing had an idea. A very ambitious one. Build the largest passenger aircraft the world had ever seen. At the time, this sounded almost ridiculous. Many believed the aircraft would simply be too large to operate efficiently, but Boeing pushed forward anyways. Led by engineer Joe Stutter, often referred to as the father of the 747, the company began work on what would become one of the most famous aircraft ever built. And it wasn't easy. The aircraft was so enormous that Boeing actually had to build a brand new factory just to assemble it. That factory in Everett, Washington, became one of the largest buildings in the world by volume, and inside it, engineers created something revolutionary. The Boeing 747 first flew in 1969, and well, it changed aviation forever. The aircraft was absolutely gigantic for its time. It could carry hundreds of passengers across oceans without stopping. Some versions could transport over 500 people. For many travelers in the 1970s and 1980s, stepping onto a 747 felt like entering the future. These aircraft featured massive cabins, wide aisles, multiple seating sections, and in some cases, even lounges and bars on board. And yes, actual bars. Some airlines transformed the upper deck into luxury spaces for first-class passengers. Back then, flying was often seen as glamorous, not the, right, okay, we're going to take you to this destination and we're going to leave you here. And the 747 became the ultimate symbol of that golden age of travel. Its distinctive hump design also became legendary. Interestingly, that upper deck wasn't originally created for luxury. Boeing believed that supersonic passenger aircraft, like the Concorde, might eventually replace traditional jets. So, the 747 was designed in a way that allowed it to be easily converted into a cargo aircraft later in life. That raised cockpit design allowed the nose of the aircraft to swing open for cargo loading. And, well, ironically, that actually helped the 747 survive far longer than it was expected to. As the years passed, the Boeing 747 became the backbone of international aviation. Airlines across the globe operated it, such as British Airways, Lufthansa, Japan Airlines, Qantas, Singapore, Pan Am. The list goes on and on and on and on. For millions of people, their very first long-haul flight happened aboard a 747. And the aircraft didn't just transport passengers. It carried presidents, royal families, space shuttle components, military cargo, and humanitarian aid. Whew, that was a tricky one to pronounce. Multiple versions of the aircraft were developed over time, such as the 747-100, 200, the longer-range 747-400, and eventually the modernized 747-8. Each version improved on the last while still keeping the aircraft's unmistakable appearance. The 747 even became a cultural icon. It appeared in films, televisions, advertisements, and countless photographs. To many people, it represented adventure, freedom, and global connection. But despite its success, problems slowly began to appear. The world was changing. Airlines started looking for aircraft that were cheaper to operate, and the 747 had one major disadvantage: its 4 engines. When the aircraft was designed, having 4 engines was essential for long-distance flights over the oceans, but over time, engine technology improved dramatically. New twin-engine aircraft like the Boeing 777 and Airbus A350 became far more fuel efficient. They could fly similar routes while using less fuel and requiring less maintenance. And for airlines, that meant lower costs. The rise of point-to-point travel also hurt the 747. Instead of transporting huge numbers of passengers between giant hub airports, airlines increasingly preferred smaller aircraft flying directly between different cities. Slowly, airlines began retiring their 747 fleets, and one by one, the Queen of the Skies started disappearing. And for aviation fans, it genuinely felt emotional. Because the 747 wasn't just another aircraft. It had personality. You heard it before you even saw it. Those 4 engines had a sound unlike anything else. The aircraft looked powerful, elegant, almost majestic in the sky. Heck, it was majestic in the sky. Then came 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic devastated global aviation. Passenger demand collapsed overnight, and many airlines accelerated the retirement of their Boeing 747 fleets permanently. For some airlines, the aircraft would never carry passengers again. After decades dominating the skies, the era of the passenger 747 was coming to an end. In 2023, Boeing delivered the very last 747 ever built, cargo variant for Atlas Air. And just like that, production of one of the most iconic aircraft in history officially ended. But the story of the Boeing 747 isn't really one of failure. Far from it. The aircraft succeeded beyond almost anyone's expectations. It helped make international travel accessible to millions of people. It connected countries and cultures on an unprecedented scale, and over half a century it remained one of the most recognizable machines on Earth. Even today, cargo versions of the aircraft still fly across the world, and whenever one appears overhead, aviation enthusiasts still stop to watch, because seeing the 747 in the sky feels different, special somehow. The Boeing 747 wasn't just an airplane, it was an era of ambitious engineering, global travel, and the belief that bigger really could be better. And although the Queen of the Skies may be fading from passenger service, its legacy will never disappear. Thank you for listening to Explaining the Skies, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!